Hello and very warm welcome to you all. I am Vikas Nangia with Focus Live Season 3. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest on the program is India's father of telecom, someone who's futuristic, optimistic, and he has often said in his interviews that he has been raised with Gandhian values. Speaking of Mahatma Gandhi, he always said and laid emphasis on be the change you want to see. Our guest tonight on the program is referring to a change through his book, Redesign the World. My guest on the program is Dr. Sam Pitroda. Dr. Pitroda, thank you so very much for joining us on Focus Live Season 3.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Indeed, looking forward to this great opportunity with you. In the very beginning, let me start the conversation by asking you, the title of the book, Redesign the World, is very, very intriguing. What does the book entail?
Book was thought about almost 7 years ago. Finally, Corona crisis forced me to write it because I was in quarantine for almost a year at home in Chicago. I've been thinking about this mainly because just about the time I was born, world was designed. During World War II, I was born in 1942. At that time, US-led design gave birth to UN, World Bank, IMF, NATO, WTO, GDP, GNP, and sort of US created a rule of law for world to follow. It was important because US was going to help build Japan, Europe, and everybody sort of fell in line. At that time, India was still a colony. China didn't matter. So the design was really conceived by a very small group of Western world. That design was based on democracy, human rights, capitalism, consumption, and military. I find that 75 years down the road, or 80 years down the road, lots of things have happened. To begin with, decolonization of the world, rise of China, fall of Soviet Union, birth of transistor and rise of technology, increasing inequality, 9/11, and finally COVID-19. When you map all of these big events and underneath look at the role of hyperconnectivity, you realize that the design just doesn't work in a hyper-connected world. For the first time in the human history, we are all connected. Never happened before. What does this connectivity mean to the way we educate people, way we govern, way we deliver health services? As you know, everything is changing and changing very fast. And I personally believe it is time to redesign the world. Not that I'm going to be 100% successful, but all I can do is begin new conversation. Saying, look, this design doesn't work. You ask a bunch of young people and they will tell you what they want. They want peace, they want prosperity, they want fun, they want education, they want employment. They don't want geopolitical fights. They want different kind of a world. So when you look at global leaders meeting today, they only talk about geopolitical stress. They talk about military. They talk about violence. They talk about markets, financial systems, economy. And I think we need to change that conversation a little bit to bettering planet and improving quality of life for everybody in this world.
So let's say if we redesign the world today, which part of the world would be like when India and China were back then? Or do you think today everything is unilateral? Everybody should be taken in consideration, and that's how you should redesign the world?
I firmly believe that there are only two things that matter in life. One, planet.
Hmm.
Planet doesn't need people. People need planet. And when I talk about planet, I'm really talking about all other life, from birds and bees to insect to trees to water to ocean to air to you name it, global warming, all of that tells us that we are all interconnected, interdependent, interwoven. You look at corona crisis, one little virus in middle of nowhere can bring entire world to halt. So let's not forget that our first priority is to take care of our planet. And you can't really think in the traditional terms saying Brazilian jungles are Brazilian property. It is global heritage, because what happens in Brazil affects all of us. You can't say Himalayas are only Indian property. You can't say what affects in Africa doesn't affect us. So many times when people in India say, oh, it is an internal problem, there's no such thing anymore.
Mm.
Everything affects everybody. Second thing is people. At the end of the day, people matter. Doesn't matter what color, what race, what religion. All human beings must be treated with respect, dignity, given similar opportunities, because at the end of the day, we all came from same place. We may look different today. So we must get off this colonial mindset, mentality. You know, you look at democracy all over the world.
Right.
Democracy is not inclusive. In US, we have Black Lives Matter. In India, we have, Dalits and all. So everywhere we have this inequality as a big challenge.
Mm. Well, inequality, disparity, yes, they are, integral challenges of every other country. And my question to you is now, yes, many of these situations, many of these problems and issues, the world knows. There are bodies, there are institutions which are working towards it. Day in, day out, there are conversations, debates, panel discussions, but we all know what the result is. In the book, Redesign the World, do you come up with some suggestions as well?
Oh, yeah, very much so. That's the purpose of the book. So if you don't offer a solution, identifying problems doesn't require much talent.
Right, right.
Identifying solution requires a fair deal of thinking. Today, redesign question is on everybody's mind. Like you said, lots of experts are available in the world, economists, politicians, social scientists, medical doctors, engineers, scientists. But I believe everybody looks at world from their perspective.
Hmm.
And my journey has given me a very unique perspective, because I've lived in two parts of the world. I was born and raised in India as a very poor, comparatively, person in small little tribal village in Orissa. My father had fourth grade education. I went to college, got my degree in physics, and 55 years ago came to America on a boat. And here I built my life. In the process, I started commuting back and forth between India and US. So I have seen a rich country, a poor country, a working democracy, sort of struggling democracy.
Right.
I have seen the birth of transistor. I worked with vacuum tubes. I've seen birth of microprocessor. I was there when Intel was being conceived. Okay, so I have seen it to some extent, lot of things. And I thought, with this unique experience, what do I bring to the table? So I'm not looking at redesign from the viewpoint of a rich person. It is not a formula from World Economic Forum. or a billionaire. It is not a formula from Western mindset, nor it is a formula from just an Indian mindset. So I would like to think that my journey has given me a special insight. Again, not that I have all the answers, but the proposal I have is pretty straightforward in the book.
Mm-hmm.
The book has about 10 chapters. It begins with the design at World War II. It talks about all the tipping points. Then it proposes a design. Design has to be based on what we have accomplished. It has to be evolutionary and not revolutionary. So I believe we have accomplished a great deal in the last 75 years. Longevity has increased. Infant mortality has decreased. Poverty has been reduced world over. Millions have been lifted out of poverty. So a lot of good things have happened. But at the same time, we have messed up our planet with pollution, environmental blunders. We have created inequality. We have left billions of people behind. Rich have become very rich and poor have remained very poor. So we have serious problems in this world. Violence has increased to some extent, maybe not relatively. You look at US, the number of people in prison in US is the largest in the world in terms of percentage. Why? This is a country with high education level. So the idea I propose is to build on the 5 main pillars that first design was built on. Democracy is good. I believe in democracy. But I want that democracy to be inclusive. So my proposal is take democracy to inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Make democracy work. I mean, today I have concern in India that democracy doesn't work. In many countries, democracies have been hijacked, by populist movement, nationalist mindset, authoritarian regime. That's not what democracy is supposed to be. Democracy is to empower people. Democracy is for equality, equity, inclusion. Then I believe basic human rights is not good enough. We want to provide basic human needs because we live in an era today where we can produce anything. We are no longer living in an era of scarcity. We are living in an era of surplus. Why do we have hungry people in this world? Why can't we provide them housing? I mean, every time I go to San Francisco, I wonder about people on the street. Say, what a rich country, Silicon Valley, and we can't take care of this. Where is the problem? If you want, we can solve it. But we don't want to solve these problems. Okay. So our problem is we can do anything. We must decide what is that we want to do. But we wind up doing same thing over and over again, increasing inequality. Look at violence. So let me come back to violence later on. The third is capitalism. Capitalism has worked to a point, but the greed has taken over. Crony capitalism works well. So we have inequality. We need new version of the capitalism. It is not about GDP only. It could be about gross environmental product, gross human developmental product, gross cultural product, gross happiness product. Okay. Earlier, we could measure all this. Now with big data analytics, machine learning, we can do a lot of these things.
Right. Right.
Then consumption. I think we produce today stuff only for people who can afford to buy and not for people who need it. So we need to learn to conserve. We need to focus on sustainability. And finally, I strongly believe that time has come for world and humanity to recognize it doesn't make sense to create war. Don't build warheads. We must learn to collaborate and not confront. We must learn to cooperate, co-create. We can do it. So we must focus on non-violence. And to some extent, these are some of the Gandhian principles I grew up with.
Right.
I lived with. Makes a lot of sense today. Do we have guts to face this reality? Do we want to change? And all I'm saying is let's begin that conversation.
So we're going to take a quick short break over here. On the other side of the break, I am going to get a little bit more specific about these 5 pillars and get some more information, insight from you. And we will continue to have the conversation on your book, Redesign the World. Viewers, you stay tuned. And Dr. Pitroda, I'd also like to bring to your attention that we've got some questions from our viewers for you to address them. We'll make them as part of the conversation as well. All this on the other side of the break.
If you're thinking of buying jewelry now and don't want to step outside, relax. All you need to do, call us. On the day and time of your convenience, we will bring our collection to you. Welcome to the Malabar Gold and Diamonds Showroom online experience. Step into your world without stepping out. Now that's our promise. Malabar Gold and Diamonds.
Welcome back. You're watching Focus Live Season 3. I'm Vikas Nangia. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today on the program is Dr. Sam Pitroda. We are talking to him about his new book, Redesign the World. Dr. Pitroda, thank you so very much for joining us. In the very beginning of the second segment of our conversation, allow me to take this audio question from Seema Govil from Austin, Texas. Take a listen. Would appreciate your reaction.
Hi, Sam. This is Seema Govil from Austin, Texas. Congratulations on your new book, Redesigning the World. So, I want to ask you, you started writing this book 5 years ago. So, when you finished it last year, did you rewrite some of the chapters and some of the content that you had already written or thought of when you finally finished it? I was just curious how pandemic changed the content of the book and if any of this in the telecom world, in the communication world that you had predicted will happen as it happened in 2020 and is happening in 2021. So if you could throw some light on that, thank you so much. And I can't wait to read your book very soon. Thank you.
I want to clarify that I've been thinking about this book for 5 years, 7 years, but I really started writing in March of 2020. Even in that year, lots of things changed. So I did rewrite several things. It is like writing any other book. The first draft goes through at least 4 or 5 revisions. You are never happy. You always want to change things. It's like a puzzle.
Right.
To put together.
Correct. Correct.
And at some point in time, you have to say enough is enough and let it go. And you never satisfy everybody, including you. But that's okay. It's almost like painting also. You know, you want one more stroke, you want to change that color a little bit here and there. And it's a process. So thanks for your question. Yes, I did change things in 1 year. And after it is published, I feel that there are a couple of things I could have changed again. And change is the only thing that is constant. Thank you.
You know, I want to ask you, when you started writing the book, yes, it was all based on the observation, what you were looking around. Now, when you were writing this book, what was Dr. Pitroda's mindset? Was it as a technocrat? Was it as a politician? Was it as an activist? Was it as a global citizen? What was it in you while you were putting your thoughts together?
Very good question, Vikas. Very interesting question. Thank you for asking. I saw it as an average 79-year-old human being who had the privilege of a special journey. I did not see as an engineer, as a scientist, as an entrepreneur. I just saw it more as an average guy saying, in front of me, I've seen this 79 years of journey and experiences. I was poor, I was rich. I was ignorant, I became knowledgeable. I was young, I became old. I was stupid, I got little wiser. Okay. I'd never moved out of India. I traveled to 80 countries. Okay. So I think my own journey gave me a unique set of lenses to look. I did not look at it as an Indian or as an American. I did not look at it from the viewpoint of East or West, Democrat or Republican, rich or poor, urban or rural. I looked at it from the viewpoint of being a human being. I'm just a normal human being. And when I talk to my driver in India, for example, or a cook, I must remember that they are also like me. No difference. Okay. And I saw it from that perspective because I lived with tribal people and they played a very important part in my life. And can I ignore them? Can I treat them the way they are being treated? That's where I came from. I lived in a small little tribal village in Orissa where air was fresh. Jungles were lush, green. Water was clean. It's all gone. So when I think of this, I say to myself that my parents and grandparents gave me a world which was poor, clean, and simple. I am giving to my grandchildren a world that is rich, polluted, and very complicated.
How technology has hampered or affected climate change or has affected our climate? Talk about that part.
Okay, first of all, technology is like a knife with which you can cut tomato and potato and fruits, and you can also kill somebody. So it all depends on how we use technology. Which technology? I would say technology of energy produced by burning a lot of coals and a lot of petrochemicals is partly responsible for environmental blunders. Cutting trees, chemical industries is partly responsible. Electronic may not be as responsible as people think. But of course, that also has some chemical processes. Okay. So technology has done wonders in many areas. The fact that we are all connected today. If we didn't have the kind of mobile connectivity which we have today, Corona crisis would have been very difficult to handle. Okay. So communication has helped us in handling global crisis. Environmental crisis has a lot to do with energy, overuse of energy. I hope we all remember that US not long ago, before rise of China, was 50% of the user of energy in the world. Okay. So US had played an important role in polluting the world. We know that, everybody knows it. Okay. Now China is responsible. India is responsible. Okay. So everyone has played a role in polluting, whether it is because of increased population, increased demand for energy, lack of concern for, forest, rivers, plastic disposal. You look at the mountain we have created in the ocean of plastic bags. Okay. It also has a lot to do with consumption, overconsumption. When I was doing research for this book, I was shocked to learn how much water is used in producing one pair of jeans or t-shirt. I realized that over a period of time, I have collected 120 t-shirts. And I said, my God, am I not a polluter?
Mm.
I never thought of it that way before. Saying, do I really need that many t-shirts? Just because it's on sale, I bought it. I said, I'm no longer going to buy anything. Number of ties, number of suits. Okay. Do you really need all that? So I think overconsumption in some part of the world is responsible for pollution. We have this inequality that I may have too much and my cousin may have nothing.
So you're talking from consumption perspective, and you're also talking about minimalistic approach in life
Reasonable.
is very good.
Look at cars.
Let me ask you, Dr. Pitroda, this question. You know, you've got over 100 patents under your name and under your company's name. As an innovator, you know, you've come up with some disruptive innovations. Let me ask you this. When you make an innovation today, how much do you keep climate change in consideration?
I worry about climate change a lot. Okay. I believe we need distributed architecture everywhere. I'm a big believer in bottom-up development and distributed architecture. Because I know when I started in telephony almost 55 years ago, we had a centralized architecture, one big telephone exchange, 100,000 lines, and everybody connected through that, and cost per line remained as $1,000. Until mobile phone came with a separate tower, it was a distributed architecture. That architecture reduced cost from 2,000 to 1,000 to 500 to less than $100 a line. When it hit $100 a line, we added 7 billion more phones. So distributed architecture brings about affordability, scalability, and sustainability. Today, you take power. Power is not a distributed architecture. You generate power somewhere through power line. You bring it to your home, and by the time that bulb is lit, 80% of the energy is wasted. What I want is a power source in the back of my house that will help environment. Okay. For a year, I have not been to the office. I don't drive car anymore. I don't have to go to laundry every week. Okay. I don't have to fill in gas every week. And I can almost get things done. Not all of it. What it says to me is I must minimize unnecessary travel. I would normally go to Florida or New York for a lunch. And what a dumb thing to do now. You know, I'll get up at 4 in the morning, go to airport, take a 6 o'clock flight, get to New York by 11, 10, have a lunch, and then come back and waste 24 hours for half an hour meeting. Now I tell people, you get your lunch there, I get my lunch here, and we'll have a lunch on Zoom.
Right.
Look at the amount of energy I save, amount of hassle I save. If you plot all of that, early morning getting up, turning on lights, to, you know, making coffee, to, you know, driving car to the airport, parking at the airport, all that, you realize your contribution to pollution. And
Dr. Pitroda, let me also ask you, when you gave the reference of, you know, how earlier people were traveling for their meetings and now it's all happening virtually. And these are some of the recent, you know, discoveries, I would say, that people have, you know, with user-friendly technology, and people are using now at all levels, you know, at all age groups, be it the students in schools or colleges, or the intellects in their, you know, the bureaucrats or the CEOs of the companies, they're all using now. So in context to that, the question that I have in mind for you is, how do you view, how is technology reshaping our lives?
Oh, I think hyperconnectivity is changing our life completely. And that's some part of the conversation in the book. It is changing itself. It is changing our relationships. I have 3 grandchildren in California. I haven't seen them for 15 months. But I, you know, see them on video every day. It's a different kind of relationship. Okay. Travel for work, doing work on computers remotely. Not that everybody would be able to do. It is not that 100% of human interaction will be taken over by technology. That's not true. But substantial part can happen. Okay. So technology is a tool. You know, if you still want to go to a restaurant with friends, which is okay. All right. So it's not black and white. I find that nothing in this life is black and white. It's all gray. Less gray or more gray. But we tend to compartmentalize world. We automatically put people in a box without thinking, whether it is based on race, religion, color, look, income. Life is not about putting somebody in a box.
And since we are talking about technology, I also wanted to get reaction from you. That's what you spoke about, is a great utilization, using it in a positive way. Many individuals have abused and used the technology in a very, very negative way as well. From that mindset, from that approach, what would you say?
There isn't much I can say. You know, it's like, you know, knife, I told you. Some people will use it to kill somebody.
Right.
Because they are not happy with themselves. You know, they need to build strength from inside. Okay. Why do you have to be angry? Why do you have to be violent? Okay. Why do you have to be jealous? Why do you have to have ego? I think all of these things are very important in the growth of a person. You know, I told you earlier, look at the amount of people who are in prison in America. Why? Why do we have that? Because we have spent a lot of time and energy in building Six Sigma quality products, but we have not spent time on building Six Sigma quality human beings. Okay. We need to understand that in life, what matters, at least to me, based on my upbringing, is truth, an absolute truth, which is very difficult to live with, trust, love, inclusion, diversity, work. These are all important ideas in life. And if you start with that, you won't have a fight with anybody. Okay. And it's not that complicated. Believe me, it doesn't require PhD. It doesn't require a huge amount of training courses, you know, go spend $500 to meditate and all that. No, it is all inside. You can do it quickly if you want to. Okay.
But do you see that shift from person to society to a country? That shift is possible. I'm going to get your reaction on that on the other side of the break, and we'll take some more questions of our viewers. We'll be right back after these messages.
ఎక్స్చేంజ్ 8,000 రూపాయల బ్యాలెన్స్ మ్యామ్.
ఇవ్వనక్కర్లేదమ్మా, 8,000 మీకే వస్తాయి.
ఎస్ మ్యామ్, మేము కేవలం హాల్మార్క్ 916 గోల్డ్నే అమ్ముతాం. ఇంకా మీకు దొరికింది 100% ఎక్స్చేంజ్ వాల్యూ.
క్వాలిటీ, ఇది మలబార్ ప్రామిస్.
Welcome back. You're watching Focus Live Season 3. Dr. Pitroda, thank you so very much for joining us again in our third segment of Focus Live. Prior to the break, where I left the conversation was, do you see the shift happening from an individual to a society at a country level and then at a global level. Do you see that happening? It all sounds very utopian, very wishful thinking.
Well, change has to begin from within. Nobody can change you except yourself. It is not utopian. It is real. It's human. You have to decide whether you want to change or you don't want to change. If you don't want to change, there isn't much I can do. If you want to be happy, I believe this is a formula. Very simple formula. Okay. If you want to be jealous, if you want to be competitive, if you want to be egoistic, that's your option. I can't help. Okay. You have to make those choices.
Like the choices that we make.
Like Gandhiji said, change has to come from within. You have to be the change. If enough of us change, there won't be a problem.
In segment one, you mentioned about democracy, you spoke about capitalism, and you also bring in the reference in your book about that today we all need to be globalists and not nationalists. You very aptly brought in the references of certain countries as well. In context to that, I have a question from Manisha Gandhi from Houston, Texas. Take a listen. Would appreciate your reaction.
Okay.
Hi, Vikas. Hi, Sam. Thank you, Vikas, for having me. This is Manisha Gandhi from Houston, Texas. I have a question regarding your book, Redesigning the World. Love the concept of global development, human development, and environment for the future, which is friendly and sustainable for all of us. You mentioned religion, wars, and differences quite a bit in the book as well. How do you see countries like Russia, North Korea, Japan, China, Middle East participating in the global peace, nonviolence, and prosperity for all going forward to create the vision that you see?
Thank you, Manisha. I think you have asked an important question. When I talk about democracy, we all have different version of democracy. Soviet Union very much feels that they have their own democracy. You go to Middle East, they have their own democracy. We may think it is monarchy, it is dictatorship. But I want to emphasize the fact that hyperconnectivity brings about democratization, decentralization, and demonetization of a different type. It really reduces the cost structure. So democratization is a way of life going forward. It is the degree of democratization and the sphere of democratization that is what we are debating. I think they will all come around. They will realize that to live in a hyper-connected world, you got to be much more open, much more transparent, much more accessible, much more networking. Technology is going to force you to empower people. This little device in my hand is basically empowering me to get my news, get my contacts, get my, education, health services, all that. As you begin to empower people, you begin to decentralize. As you begin to decentralize, you give more choices to people. So I think in the long run, democracy is going to thrive. There may be glitches in the beginning. Today, there is knee-jerk reaction in many parts of the world, and authoritarian regimes are, coming up in more countries than we had thought. But I think it is a temporary phenomenon.
In the book, you also talk about major reforms of institutions such as United Nations, WHO. You talk about World Bank. Can you elaborate in what context you're talking about the major reforms of these institutions?
See, these institutions were created 75, 80 years ago. There has been a lot of conversation about reforming these institutions. A lot of reports have been prepared, but no one has really acted on it. In 75 years, we have not created one single new global institution of that order. You have UN, you have World Bank. World Bank and IMF was required when there was no Goldman Sachs and JP Morgans and others. Now you have massive banks. So should the role of World Bank and IMF change? What is the role of these two in cryptocurrencies? Okay. Similarly, UN is an advisory group. You take, for example, Security Council. How could you have a Security Council when someone like India with 1.3 billion people is not interested?
It's still not included. Yeah.
An example. There's nothing to, do with anything except the number of people. Okay. So I think these institutions have outlived its utility. I was invited to give a talk at World Bank a few years ago, and all the World Bank executives were there. And I said, look, you are going to be surprised as to what I have to say. And I have to say, and I'm just basically taking the other extreme view, is you got to rethink about World Bank. Maybe you need to wind it up. Okay. The point is, no organization can live for 75 years without substantial change. And we need massive change. We need to create new global organizations. If you want to take care of inclusion, create a global organization on inclusion. Then people will pay attention to inclusion. But you can't say inclusion is part of UN. Nothing will happen. It's like sustainable development goals. Good goals, great idea. It was like Millennium Development Goal. Nothing happened because you don't have organizational architecture. Okay. So we need to create new institutions. Why can't we have a global institution on non-violence? Like UN, a global institution on non-violence, which teaches non-violence.
That is the mandate at United Nations, but
UN can't do it. It's a mandate. So big deal. There's a mandate. Okay, but who is responsible for that? How much funding is given to that institution? Okay. And violence is not just an issue between countries. Violence is an issue at home, in the family, on the streets, in the community, in cities, states, nations, and in between nations. Why isn't there a global institution on non-violence? If you don't have it, nothing will happen. It's very simple.
We're going to take another short break over here, Dr. Pitroda. On the other side of the break, I want to get your attention and reaction on COVID-19 India in crisis. Viewers, you stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
ఇది మా హీరో అల్లుడు కోసం ఫిట్గా ఉంటుంది.
పర్ఫెక్ట్గా ఫిట్ అవుతుంది. ఇది మైండ్ డైమండ్, 100% క్వాలిటీ.
సార్, ప్రతి మైండ్ డైమండ్ న్యాచురల్. ఇంకా మేము 28 క్వాలిటీ టెస్ట్లు చేస్తాం.
28 టెస్ట్లా?
ప్రతి డైమండ్ జ్యువెలరీతో పాటు ఇంటర్నేషనల్ ల్యాబ్ సర్టిఫికేట్ కూడా.
కళ్ళు మూసుకుని మీ హీరో కోసం వజ్రాలను తీసుకోండి. ఇది మలబార్ ప్రామిస్.
Dr. Pitroda, thank you so very much for joining us. In our last segment, I want to get your reaction and attention on COVID-19 India in crisis. Where do you think, where did we fail?
I think we took it too lightly after the first wave. We didn't react to plan for the worst. We took great pride in the fact that we have dealt with it with great success. We had 1 year to prepare, and we messed it up with false narrative, with no understanding of the reality, And now we are realizing that there is a serious crisis. Institutions are falling apart. And from my perspective, based on a group that we meet every Thursday for a year, and we talk about these issues every week, we identified three main areas. One is scientific temper. We don't have scientific temper. If some Swami comes and says, take a bath in Ganga and coronavirus will go away, 2 million people go there. We had this Kumbh Mela. There is no need for a Kumbh Mela at this time. Sorry, nothing against anybody. We should have postponed elections. What was the need for election? We could have postponed it for 6 months. So these were the super spreaders. So one, we don't have scientific mindset. We don't walk the talk. If PM is calling a rally of 100,000 people and not wearing a mask, you're sending a message that it doesn't matter. You don't have to wear a mask. Unfortunately, this is the message people get. Second, we have not allowed our civil society to function well. We have basically killed our civil society. NGOs have been harassed for their funding and this and that, and people have been just, harassed all over. And today you need NGOs because things have to be fixed in communities, in districts, in small villages. Okay. And third is institutions, whether it is health, election, judiciary, income tax, all our institutions don't have the kind of autonomy they need, independence they need. They take party line. Okay. And these things have huge impact on what we are going through. Don't underestimate the power of democracy. Don't play with it. Please empower people, trust people. We have so many good people in India, highly talented. Why haven't we set up a task force on corona like we did in US? And why isn't that task force coming on television every day and giving a national report? Why isn't Prime Minister calling a press conference on corona crisis? Why isn't real leadership responding to the public questions? That is what democracy is all about.
Well, as you very aptly said in the beginning, that in the first wave, people took it all very lightly. Dr. Harshvardhan, the health minister, basically is at the helm of WHO as well. And you talk about the task force. India never considered that aspect over there. In the month of January, we were one of the biggest exporter of vaccines, and then today we are one of the biggest importer, not just about the vaccine, but for everything from oxygen concentrators to you name it. We are seeking help from the entire world right now. The global community is looking at India, and one of the key things which I want the reaction from you is that they're seeking, now again, it's all about hyperconnectivity. They're talking about that India needs to be taken care. The world is coming together because if India's economy, India's health is not taken care of, it could have ripple effects across the globe.
Very true. I would say that is very true because this is something that affects everybody. We are all interconnected, interwoven, interdependent. What happens in India affects America. What happens in America affects Africa, and what happens in Africa affects China. So we must recognize we are part of a global community. One issue that came to my mind while we are talking is that all these countries are willing to help India. But India has to also recognize that we need to decentralize the delivery and receiving system. We can't have everything go through PMO because India is too complex. If somebody wants to help Rajasthan, let them do that. If somebody wants to help Kerala, let them do that. If somebody wants to add somebody else, let them do that. You cannot have everything coming through a central system right now in an emergency like this. Okay. So I think bottom-up development, distributed architecture is the key to handling all of these complex issues.
Allow me to take another question of our viewer, Monica Mahajan from New Jersey. Take a listen.
Hi, my name is Monica. Thank you for taking my question. The one biggest takeaway from this pandemic has been that we're literally not, alone in this world. We're literally dependent on each other. One person ill anywhere in the world is pretty much, everybody ill everywhere else. So though we're asking global leaders to cooperate and international cooperation and global support of each other, but to me, like, as a layperson, those are just like really big words. What are tangible things, like 1, 2, or 3 things that leaders or countries or even individuals, like just regular folks like us, should probably be doing to look at it in a more macro way than just worry about ourselves? Thank you.
Although you are in the windy city, but it seems like that the wind over here in New Jersey was, a little bit of audio obstruction was there. I hope you were able to get the question.
I could. Thank you very much. Thanks for the question. I think it's an important question. What can we do individually? I always tell young people that the lesson I've learned in life from Mahatma Gandhi and from Einstein, those were my 2 heroes in life, is that everything begins with self. You must first build a strong self, respectable self, ethical self, moral self, self that is selfless. So what can each one of us do? Each one of us can treat other human being with respect, dignity, love, and not discriminate them. To me, that's a big start. We know that if little child is hurt, we don't ask that little child, what is your religion, before we help, or what race are you, or what is your nationality. I think we need borderless thinking. We need thinking about humanity and planet, and not sort of put our arms around and say, that's mine. And you worry about yours, I'll worry about mine.
Right.
That to me is the fundamental issue. And everything we do, we must ask one basic question. Is it good for the planet, or is it bad for the planet? Is it good for the human being, or it's bad for the human being? If we do these things properly, enough of us do these things, world will change. And that's the kind of world I want to talk about. And Einstein comes in this whole equation because he had the great imagination. We got to imagine a better world. So when somebody says, oh, it is Ethiopian, it won't get done, I would say, no, you got to imagine. What is the sense in imagining things that's already done? You got to imagine things that people say, oh, it's difficult to do. Okay, that's what Einstein taught us. That think beyond horizon. Look for a complex solution. And don't get disappointed by saying, oh, it won't be done. No. So don't give me this, that it is Ethiopian. It is okay. I mean, not Ethiopian.
I guess with that positive ideology, with that positive note, we'll wrap up the conversation. Dr. Pitroda, thank you so much for your time and sharing your insight with our viewers. And once again, congratulations for the book, Redesign the World.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you for the opportunity. Book is available on online. We are releasing it in India, UK, US, and I hope it will generate some conversation, new conversation.
Absolutely. I'm sure it will, and as a matter of fact, it has already started. That's the reason that we thought of having you on the program. On the social media, there's enough conversation going on. So yes, the conversation has begun. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Don't spend more money in selling your home. Instead, make more. For all your real estate needs, trust only Lovi. Lovi Realty Group makes it easy to sell your home. The Lovi Sale by Owner offers the same services as a realtor does for a fraction of the price. For only $990, we list your home, handle digital marketing, take calls, and schedule home showings for you. Planning to buy a house? Lovi has the best tools and agents to make your journey happy. We offer home buyers rebate of 1% or more cash back towards the closing. Visit our website to learn more about our programs, www.lovihomes.com. For more details, please contact 908-304-9621 or 908-337-1289.
Getting into Ivy League is not just a dream anymore. Graduate from the top universities of the US. Start your SAT or ACT prep now with Turito. Turito offers you live classes with expert tutors, credential building activities, guidance with college applications, curated study material, progress tracking app, and assessments based on AI and ML. Experience our course through a demo today. Enroll now. Turito.
If you're thinking of buying jewelry now and don't want to step outside, relax. All you need to do, call us. On the day and time of your convenience, we will bring our collection to you. Welcome to the Malabar Gold and Diamonds Showroom online experience. Step into your world without stepping out. Now that's our promise. Malabar Gold and Diamonds.